It is T. Watts and TR on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Travis Reier alongside site publisher Tim Watts. Tim, it is Thanksgiving week. We have no shortage of topics. We've got the Iron Bowl, obviously, to discuss. We've got Alabama men's hoops to discuss as well. We'll talk some Thanksgiving sides, just Thanksgiving spreads in general. And of course, we have our Round Table Mailbag that we always like to get into here on the program, and we're tempting fate one more time, Tim. We went live with the recruiting roundup yesterday with yourself and Andrew Bone. We're going to go live with T. Watts and TR. We'll see how this goes too.
Yeah, I just felt like I'm a more 20-second delay, maybe editable, like a good brownie in Amsterdam. You
The
might want to edit me.
FCC. I don't think does the FCC can't really regulate this at this
Well, you don't
point,
really
so
know
maybe
until
we're
they
okay.
call you and they hit you with the fines. So we don't want to find out the hardest of hard ways.
Oh, I think we'll be okay. But it is the Tuesday of Thanksgiving week, and with
How did
that,
we
Tim,
get here?
are
How
there
did we
any?
get here?
I know.
I mean, are you kidding? You wait all year for football. You gripe and the whole season, and then it's over. You're at the Iron Bowl. You're at the Michigan Ohio State game. You're at the Turkey Bowl. You get here so fast. It's kind of odd. I'll tell you what, though, I enjoy. I was reflecting on myself a little. I think I love sports, enjoy sports so much more after COVID. I think that when you survive a whole year of Korean baseball, which I love, was my
You were
only
all into the Korean
sports.
baseball
Yeah, I mean, if you don't
at
love
3
Korean
a.m. or
baseball,
whatever it was.
yeah, so you go through that. That's when I realized how much when I was up at 6 a.m. watching Korean baseball because it's only live sports. I knew how much I loved it. So I've enjoyed every season since. Last year I enjoyed it. I know there was 2 losses. This year I've enjoyed it ups and downs. So I just don't take it for granted anymore like I used to. So it goes fast, but I enjoy it week by week. I enjoy it. It's not one of those. I can't remember what happened. I can remember every step of this season. I can remember the South Florida game like it was played yesterday. I can remember Texas, LSU, Tennessee. So I'm really looking forward to it. It goes too fast, but there's still a lot of football left for Alabama.
Yeah, I know countdowns are fun as we get ready for another season, but as I've gotten older, I've become less and less of a countdown guy because it seems like the quicker I count it down, the quicker it's over. I
Yeah.
almost want to savor the
Hey,
lead up because it comes and goes in a flash.
what? There's no shorter sport than college football, right? Not the
Well, you only get
NFL.
one crack a week, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, you get 12 regular seasons, you get maybe a championship game, you get the playoffs, the bowl game, but everything else, even the NFL is extended to 17 games. Anything you watch, sports wise, whatever sport it be, soccer, Formula One, basketball, any of it. This is by far the shortest, but I also think that's why it's so passionate for every game. You
Oh,
know,
there's no doubt. And that's one of the concerns you have about the expanded playoff. All this conversation we're going to have over the month leading up to the selection Sunday. Not going to be that kind of intrigue when you go to 12 teams. Now, this season, I think, is pointing towards more of a need for an expanded playoff in terms of settling an absolute national champion. But yeah, you could lose some of that. You could
almost
dilute it a little bit.
you almost wish they could just base it at the end of the season how many teams need to be in the playoffs. Some teams some seasons were barely getting 4. This one's obviously a magnificent season to have 12 teams. There's so many good teams. Even past the 8, there's teams like LSU that have perhaps the best offense in the country. So you've got plenty of teams to make that 12. But you're right. It's not always every year. It's not 12 teams worthy.
Yeah, more the exception for
I'm
sure
there for it though.
this
I'm
year.
good with the playoffs. I'll be good with it.
Yeah, I think everyone will be by the time it rolls around. And of course, from a TV perspective, ESPN will be very much here for it, very much invested in that expanded playoff. By the way, we are live, so we do have the comments open. If you'd like to chime in, we thank you for tuning in. You can do that via questions, comments in the chat there on our YouTube home for BamaOnline.com as well. We'll get to those hopefully as we move throughout the program, Tim. It is Iron Bowl week. And so, with the loss by the Auburn Tigers to New Mexico State last Saturday at Jordan-Hare Stadium, when you saw that unfold, did it change your perspective in terms of the difficulty level, maybe for Alabama going into this game Saturday? Did you think, wow, maybe this isn't going to be as difficult for Alabama as it typically is down there? Or did you think, look, yeah, that may be the worst thing to happen to Alabama. It's a
Nah, I
centering
don't,
type thing for Auburn.
I don't think you dig deep when you lose like that. I don't think you dig deep to have extra motivation to beat your in-state rival. I think Auburn's energy is going to be Auburn's energy this week. I don't think losing changed anything. Also, I don't think it mattered as much because it wasn't some late second field goal, interception, or tip pass or something. I mean, it was a thorough butt kicking. I mean, that team outplayed Auburn. I think you saw it and you saw the stats. They had a great game plan. They just outplayed them is what happened. I think that's a little bit easier to take than losing on some fluke play. But no, I don't expect it to be any more difficult. I think the crowd's the crowd and the energy's the energy. Auburn fans are great. I mean, probably get a little heat from that on the round table, but they're very passionate about their fan base. I mean, they're they're an SEC fan base, so they're going to be into the game. They'll have fun. They'll enjoy the build up, but I'm still confident Alabama's the better team and will come out there with the victory.
Yeah, that's the thing that I think was reaffirmed last Saturday in that Auburn New Mexico State game was that roster wise, Alabama is still clearly the better team. Now, intangibly, I guess you could make the argument both ways based on that performance from the Auburn perspective. But, even in that 3-game winning streak for Auburn, when you look at the teams it came against, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Arkansas, you're talking about 3 teams with a combined SEC record right now of 2-19. None of those teams have won more than one SEC game. And you look at Alabama, and it has navigated a pretty tough slate in SEC play and uh, seemingly has gotten better each and every week. I guess what I'm saying is the sample size seems more true to what we've seen from Alabama since South Florida than what we saw from Auburn, let's say, in that 3-game win streak.
Yeah, if your 3-game win streak includes beating 3 coaches who are definitely on the hot seat, one's been fired. Sam Pittman was for sure on the hot seat. I thought it was great news that he got to stay. I'm a closet Pittman fan. I'm a closet Pittman's good for the SEC guy and good for Arkansas for what it's worth. And then of course Vanderbilt, who's not very good. I think Arkansas opened the most eyes. Now, if you take Arkansas as a whole, they're not a very good football team, but they were coming off beating Florida. Beating Florida in Gainesville, right? So you're coming off that victory and you're thinking, hey, they turned it around. They changed the offensive coordinator. And then obviously the next week they haven't because Auburn thrashed them. Again, complete dominance the whole game, head to toe. So, yeah, I think it's a little bit misleading. I don't think Hugh Freeze is confused about what his team is. I think he knows when he's the underdog. And I think everybody was surprised by the New Mexico State game, except for that one guy. I saw a video before the game where they had that guy doing the Tony Brown. He was like walking with no pads with just a cutoff shirt on through the Auburn like tiger walk and was talking. I don't know who that dude is, but
he knew something.
He knew something. I saw that. I saw it well after the game Saturday night, and I was like, my God, just like that, just amazing amount of confidence, and he survived it. So, but yeah, I think that it's been an up and down season for Auburn, which is probably what they expected. And that's why Hugh Freeze has tried to focus so much on recruiting. Any good coach gets a job, to flip the roster. And I'll be honest, Auburn's situation was really bad, in my opinion, because the previous staff didn't really recruit very well.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably an understatement. It's probably an understatement. Just recruiting wasn't the focus there. They didn't have a lot of talent when they got on campus. They lost guys. You know what I mean? Bo Nix.
Yeah, I thought Harsin coming in, that was a good hire for Alabama, not just in terms of recruiting prowess, but systematically. What Harsin likes to do on offense, especially more pro style, not as gadgety. Whatever you thought of Gus, he was going to make you account for some things that you definitely didn't have to on a week-to-week basis. I think Hugh's going to be somewhat like that too.
Yeah.
And so with that thought in mind, do you go into this game if you're Alabama, Tim, thinking Got to go almost back to the Gus mindset where anything and everything could be coming from this Auburn team, especially on the offensive side and even in special teams. What the hell? Fake a punt, onside kick, those type of things this week from Auburn.
Yeah, I don't believe in moral victories really, but I also don't think Hugh Freeze wants to get beat bad by Alabama. I think he wants to show probably there's all that's going to factor in. I think you don't want to be going for it on your own 11-yard line, faking a punt and getting caught back there because they are not going to let you explain that in the press conference. So I think he'll try to find the weaknesses. What a great offensive coach does is he finds a weakness or something you don't play right, and he just runs that play over and over and over and over and over until you adjust, and then he adjusts like a really good chess match. But I'm excited about the game. I mean, it's a 2:30, which I think fares better for Alabama than a night game. I just think SEC night games are I think it's just brutal. I think to walk in there at night. I mean, I saw Bryant
as a
Denny.
visiting team, it seems
Yeah.
like.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw Bryant Denny this year, and I thought that's one of the most intimidating things I've ever seen. I saw Georgia a couple of weeks ago against Ole Miss. That's one of the, we know what Tennessee is. We know what, LSU is. But all these guys have built this stadium. They built the light shows. They built everything. There's a lot of drama. You had a whole day to drink, so you're extra rowdy. You know what I mean? So I think a 2:30 kickoff fares better for Alabama as well.
Are you more concerned, Tim, about the Auburn voodoo at Jordan-Hare Stadium, or are you more concerned about some of these lingering defensive injuries that Alabama has had with Jalen Key out and Deontay Lawson out? More, I guess, in terms of intangible stuff or tangible items of interest for this game?
Yeah, the voodoo, a lot for me, it's not. I know Jordan Harris had some weird things happen, but most of the time when Alabama gets beat, it's some kind of weird voodoo like vibe, like Tennessee last year, LSU last year, Ole Miss. I mean, we got balls bouncing off helmets back in the day. So most of the time when Alabama loses a game, you can point to something very odd. So obviously Auburn, the whole SEC thinks that's a former haunted graveyard, that the stadium was built on a haunted graveyard. So I'm not really worried about either as much. I think Alabama's base defense has been solid. I think Auburn will be game, but I'd like Alabama in every aspect in this one.
Yeah, it feels like to me, if you're Alabama defensively and you can take care of Jarquez Hunter enough in the run game, which he had a big game in Tuscaloosa last season. Auburn ran for over 300 yards. By that time of the season last year, though, with Harsin out, Cadillac in as the interim, they were very much run oriented. They were almost academy style in how they ran that offense with Robbie Ashford at quarterback. And I think that's something that could be in play this week, too. I know we haven't seen as much of Robbie Ashford in that offense the last few weeks. They committed more to Peyton Thorne over the back half of the season. I won't be surprised to see Robbie Ashford in there as a run threat to go along with Jarquez Hunter, because for me, if Auburn can't do that to a somewhat significant level, they really don't have a chance in this game, because throwing the football, this is the last bottom ranked SEC pass offense in Auburn. So if you do well enough against Hunter and maybe some of the runs with the quarterbacks that we could see, this is a tough game for Auburn to win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I think the biggest benefit Alabama's had once they're here, getting to Auburn, Georgia, whatever bowl game or playoffs they're in, is that they've seen so much. They've seen Quinn Ewers, who's a really good quarterback and a good offense. They've seen a really good wide receivers in Texas. They've seen, Robbie Ashford, I've known him since he was 6, 7, 8 years old, playing at Hoover when my sons were playing at Thompson. Unbelievable athlete. But once you face Jalen Daniels, you know what I mean? And that was pure scramble ability. Those weren't plays that he was calling. He was calling his own number on a lot of those plays. So you faced him. I think you've got an idea of what you're going to be dealing with. So I think all that has helped them get to where they're at today. And, Auburn will have a big weekend. They'll have a lot of things going on with their visitors and their recruiting, and they'll know this weekend's every bit as important as the outcome of the game, as odd as that sounds. But, I think they'll take shots. I mean, they don't have a lot to lose, but again, I don't think there's any way they don't want to keep this game close.
Yeah, just give yourself a chance there in the fourth quarter. And I agree with Hugh. He's very much in that grace period. I mean, everyone knows the roster situation. going into this season, even with adding Thorne from the transfer portal and some of the things the Tigers did on that front. It's going to be more about next year and beyond for him, especially if he can continues or recruits at a pretty high level. That'll keep that fan base
They'll
pacified
give you a
for the
year.
time
They'll get,
being. Yeah,
they used to give you 3 years probably. They'll give you a year now because the portal, I mean, you can come in instantly and have access to guys that can help you win a championship or help you win your division. You have access to those guys now. But yeah, you're getting 1 year. You're getting 1 year. You lose to New Mexico State next year or that version, and you're really going to be under a smoke show. But again, he should get a pass. That was a bad roster he inherited.
it was. And it seems like the second half of your second season, that's when you need to be showing improvement these
Yeah,
days.
no, I
So
would
to
agree with
your
you.
point, by this time next year is when a second year coach needs to be ascending or making steady progress with the program. And that's where a guy like Billy Napier, unfortunately for him, Florida's not really seeing that here in
Yeah.
November. This is a team that looks like a Florida team looks like it might go 0 for November. That is not what you want to do
And then you
in
come
year
with
two.
Billy. With Billy, you're coming with a brutal schedule next year. I haven't looked
Yeah,
at Auburn's next year, but I'm going to. Alabama's got a tough one, and I know Florida's got a tough one. So, you got to think his clock's ticking a little bit as well.
it is. It is. Hey, I wanted to ask you this too because the portal is upon us too. I know we talk a lot about the early signing date, and that's coming up next month. But boy, I continue to hear coaches. Well, we've had the portal for what, a couple of years now,
Yeah.
but it seems like more and more Mike Elko at Duke and some other coaches, Sam Pittman. These are Power Five coaches that are talking about an upcoming window or a transformation of the portal era where it is wild, wild west. We've heard wild, wild west
I
with
think they're
NIL in the portal previously, but it just feels like it's going perhaps up to another level. You get that sense, Tim?
well, you don't want it to turn basically into the NBA, some kind of feeder school. Even Major League Baseball is that way, where you have guys playing for smaller teams, lesser teams. They all end up on the bigger, stronger, more teams that can afford guys like that. So I think they're worried. Like Elko, he's a guy that's got it. Now I don't think Arkansas should be NIL wise should be concerned. They've got NIL money. Duke's another thing. How do you keep your players from one going to play more exposure? A bigger time program, a chance to win a championship. It's not all NIL based. It irritates me when I see it's not all NIL based, but they want to, a lot of these guys want to be in the ballpark of what they're worth. They want to have a chance to win. Jameer Gibbs is a great example, right? He's a guy that wanted a chance to play on a bigger stage, wanted to play in those big games, which he got a chance to do, want to be on a competitive team. But yeah, I mean, when you're Duke, how strong is your NIL when you could lose your best player, your quarterback? You saw Sam Hartman do it, right? You saw him leave
Riley
Wake
Leonard.
Forest.
Yeah.
You see guys that are leaving to go for the NIL. I mean, Tyler Van Dyke, in my opinion, put off the greatest pump fake in history. All he said was Alabama, and he was meeting with the NIL boosters, and they kept him.
And he ends up getting benched
Are
during
you
the
glad?
season.
Are you glad you kept him? Would be my question. Was that? If you go back to that meeting, would you do it the same way? So you mentioned that. I mean, teams have to be scared of guys leaving. But it is. I don't want to see teams rated because I appreciate what Mike Elko did. I love the little coaches who do more with less. I don't necessarily, but I get the point of the player. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily want to play football where nobody's seeing me. I don't have a chance to win. If I could go to Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Auburn, whatever school, Texas that you want to mention, and compete in that higher level of football. So I can see it both ways. A lot of these guys didn't dream of going to a smaller school either. You ask a kid in ninth grade, what's your dream school? Most of them don't say the local smaller school. Most of them say the big schools that we're used to in any sport.
Yeah, budget typically goes hand in hand with winning. A lot of times, not every time. I mean, we see programs out there right now that certainly put plenty into it that aren't getting those results. But Matt Rule, most recently, the Nebraska coach, I heard him in the last day or so talk about Nebraska's budget relative to the top 4 or 5 programs, even in the Big Ten right now, isn't on that par or on that level. So It's not just NIL, as Tim said. There's budget in general for programs,
You see, that's
recruiting, everything,
that's
facilities that go into that.
that's the one thing when you see fans that say just go all in and pay whatever the guy wants. Well, it's really not that simple. The budget is not much different than any talent, your favorite TV show. You've got to pay. You can't pay the number one guy triple what you pay the number, 4 or 5 or 6 guy. That 4 or 5 or 6 guy is going to get mad and walk. You have to do the risk versus the reward, but you're not just paying. I mean, I've said this before since day one. If I'm a starting right guard at a college and I'm getting $65,000, $100,000 a year for the NIL, which the whole team is, and you sign a friggin' center and pay him $300 the first year, I got a problem. Why would I not look to go make that money at another school that would pay me? That's the balance you've got to keep, because you can't have, the NIL wasn't supposed to be a bidding war. It's supposed to be, hey, make your money off your name, image, likeness. So it's all got a little twisted, but
And after you get here, you make
yes,
your
yes,
money.
these guys are like,
That's Saban's problem with it,
yes,
is
no,
as
no,
a
no, it's a
recruiting
valid.
enticement. And you
Most of
talked about it from the team dynamic standpoint. It's a nightmare when that
Yeah, yeah.
happens.
But I think Alabama's done it the right way. I think Georgia, Ohio State, and there's others. I'm only naming a few that I feel comfortable with trying to keep a balance from their starting quarterback to the 85th player on their roster, because really it comes down. Bryce Young made the money, a lot of the money, because he was Bryce Young. That's the whole point of the name, image, likeness. Now, there's freshmen that'll come into school that should be making money because they're that big a name. The kid Nico that went to Tennessee last year was
The
a huge,
quarterbacks,
yes, Nico. I can't. I'm not saying his
Elite
last name.
11 quarterbacks are going to show up at campuses getting paid, right?
He's a California kid. He's a good looking kid. He was a big time volleyball player, very well known. There's just guys. Caleb Williams, when he was coming out of high school, was that big of a name. So they should be. That's what they should be doing. Their name, image, likeness. It wasn't really a bribe to come here. So that much it has changed, because it's turned into finances for goods.
Yeah. You know what else we've got for you here on Talking Tide today? If you see the ticker down there at the bottom of the screen, we've got a special YouTube subscription offer for you. YouTube subscription exclusive. Subscribe to BamaOnline.com right now, and you're going to get 2 months, Tim, for just $1. That's YouTube exclusive. So we're giving you that right now. If you go do that, sign up with
Yeah,
us.
there's going to be a lot happening. I mean, you've got signing day coming up, and for some reason, like even my closest friends, they forget there's 2 signing periods. There's 2. Now you're going to get, what's going to happen is you're going to get through this first signing period, and 70, 80, whatever percent are going to sign. Well, all of a sudden, the 137th ranked player in the country, after that 80% sign, he's all of a sudden 11th in the country. So you're readjusting even your value for what's available. So you're going to see guys blow up. And, I've discussed it before. I covered a basketball kid back in the day when I was running Rivals basketball coverage. And the guy said he was passing on his Southern Miss offer. He said, I can do better. It was his only offer. He had no other offers. He said, I'm better than that. And I was thinking, you're really not. And I'm not sure he was better than that. And then he passed, wait till the late period. He had Kentucky, Duke, and another big offer that he got to choose from. So he absolutely knew his stock. Very smart guy, played it up. Didn't play a lot, but when he got that education there. So I think you see that in the late period. So a lot going on in the late period, the transfer portal. There's always coaching changes. Let's see if there's any at Alabama this year, but there's always coaching changes everywhere else. So
our guy Tex Tider in the comments here, he's always looking out for me here with the YouTube stuff. New subscribers only for that subscription offer. Thank you, Tex Tider. He's my guy, man.
That's a BOL pro right there.
Yeah, he is. And by the way, we appreciate Bob Rutherford checking in so far, Justin Summerlin checking in. Gelato has checked in here as well. Hooking and booking bros. He's got it here. He's asking about Ja'Cory Brooks. And it's been a star-crossed season for Ja'Cory. It just never got going. Dating back to the preseason, he came out of fall camp kind of behind Jermaine Burton and Isaiah Bond and Kobe Prentice and Malik Benson and those guys. Now he's injured. I had 2 guys as my breakout types, one on offense, one on defense. I went with Ja'Cory on offense, and I went with Justin Aboigbe on defense. So 1 for 2, I'd say, at this point.
Oh,
from
yeah,
that
you had a great one. I think I went with Isaiah Bond, didn't I?
Yeah, you did well with that.
I like him. I just like the kid's speed. When you're on like the fastest 4x400 in the country or whatever, I'm a fan. So
Absolutely.
I saw
But
somebody check in from Boise, Idaho, right?
yeah, that was let's see here. I think that's booking and
Yes.
hooking and
Looking and
booking
booking.
bros. Hooking and booking from Boise.
Also great. That should be the
Think
name
they're
of our
gonna have some
podcast.
potatoes on Thursday up there in
Hooking and
Boise?
booking. If me and Travis
Yeah.
were single, that'd be the name of our podcast.
Many, many
Uh,
moons ago. Hey, let's talk some Alabama men's basketball because intriguing
Absolutely.
matchup coming up on Friday. A little bit of a ramp up in the schedule, going down to Destin, I guess Niceville, Florida, to be exact, for that Emerald Coast Classic. Alabama going to open things up, Tim, against an Ohio State team, 3-1 on the season. That one loss against an SEC opponent in Texas A&M. Texas A&M,
It's a good
like
team.
Alabama, good team. Buzz has got that going. Top 15-ish type team in A&M. So we'll learn a little more coming up this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the first four games. I guess you go old school and call them kind of cream puff games, big blowouts. The most exciting thing was at the end of game 4, whether they'd hit 100 or not. That's it. Now you're right. You ramp it up a little bit. Ohio State and Clemson, two big name schools, come in with Arkansas State, and then you hit that. You hit that. Basically, it's the Elite Eight. If you're in the Elite Eight, you basically have to beat Purdue, Creighton, and Arizona to win it all. Some form of that. So they've got 3 really tough ones coming up. So I like the way the schedule's broke down. You come with a softer schedule, a decent schedule, and then you get an A plus, 10 out of 10 on the strength scale. And then you go back to a few games, Eastern Kentucky, Liberty, and then you head into the SEC and got some good teams. Tennessee's a heck of a basketball team. Texas A&M's a good basketball team. So Kentucky, I mean, as talented as anybody in the country, and an entire new roster. So I'm excited about the basketball team. They're fun to watch when you see them. They get out, they hustle, they've got that energy, and that's one of the reasons when Alabama recruits, I don't worry about a kid might need some form of motivation. I think Nate Oates and his staff do a fantastic job, and that was kind of the discussion with the recent signee Nas Cunningham from California. Was kind of got to number 1 in the country, kind of took his foot off the gas, fell around into that top 45, top 50 range, but talent is there. They got a big guy, Aiden Sherrill, just a lot of nice things happening for Alabama basketball right now.
Interesting weekend for sure. Pending the result of the Ohio State game Friday, Alabama will get either Oregon, good program for sure, or Santa Clara, kind of a under the radar. I think that's a West Coast Conference team. Santa Clara, by the way, is an alum of Santa Clara, right?
That's
Steve Nash.
yeah, the soccer player.
Steve
Steve
Nash.
Nash.
Wow. How about Tim pulling the footy
I
trivia out
love,
on us?
I love the NBA, so I watch the pre games, and they're always doing stuff like I'd see him kicking a soccer ball.
Yeah.
Hey, and if you see somebody kick a soccer ball, if they can play soccer or not, right? If he's bouncing off his foot 5 times, kicking it to his knee, off his head, he knows a little bit. But yeah, Stevie Nash, good football player. I tell you what, Santa Clara's been a lot of over the history of thorn in the side of some big name programs out on the West Coast.
Kurt
You look
Rambis.
up and Santa Clara's beat somebody you didn't expect them to beat.
They
So
beat Stanford a couple weeks ago.
that's what I'm saying. That is one of those teams that I would never schedule because you can't convince your fan base that Santa Clara is any good, right?
St. Mary's is like that too.
Who used to be that way was Gonzaga. You're like,
Yeah.
now you have football. You're losing to them in basketball.
Now
You
they
never
now
really.
they can't hide.
I
Yeah.
still can't understand how Gonzaga is so great at basketball. I mean,
How about
it's
that? How about that Maui Classic this year? I
dude,
know, unfortunately, it's not there, but
that's terrible.
playing it in Honolulu, and the oldest daughter was able to take in that Marquette UCLA thriller last night out there in Honolulu.
Man,
So
is
you
living my
got
dream life.
you got Kansas in that thing, you got Tennessee in that thing, you got Marquette, UCLA. Pretty
Tennessee's a
nice
good team. They had a
field.
battle yesterday, and they Syracuse. That was a good game.
It was.
Um, they pulled away late, so yeah, you got good basketball out of the gate yesterday, and that sort of kicks it off. And this has been that way since I was in high school, where it was Thanksgiving week because you had some dumb basketball tournament you were in Shades Valley. You you weren't really out of school when everybody was out of school, but I mean, you have good basketball, and we're basketball people around here. Ever since Alabama became a basketball program, so
Absolutely. Hey, you want to go ahead and jump in that mailbag because it is deep once
I didn't
again.
look at it. I wish we weren't doing it live, but yes, I know. I know my guys. I know my guys come in there with some heat. I really like
Well,
to glance at that in the morning. I'm not going to look. I'm going blind.
your boy Tuscaloosa cranks us up. Should the great Bammer Beano, Harvey Updike, get a statue outside of Bryant Denny Stadium? I don't know about that, Tuscaloosa, but maybe you could throw in, get something done at the front of Galette's or something there on the strip if you wanted
That's
to
one of the most
honor Harvey.
heated, debated Alabama things. I have been at a
Did you
table.
see Marquise Mays on Twitter yesterday?
Marquise is a root. That guy, he doesn't. Marquise was that way.
Wow.
Marquise was that way in high school. You remember he was one of Saban's flips
Yeah,
when
from Michigan.
Saban got to Alabama. It was him, Josh Chapman, Chavis Williams were the ones that will always stand out to me.
Mm-hmm.
Committed to several different schools, but Marquise is just a little bit different. I mean, he's going to speak his mind. I think a lot of it's for comedy purposes. So if you just see Marquise an isolated comment, you can take it the wrong way. But I do think that he's like over the top. But yeah, he's a Harvey Updike fan. The funniest tweet. No, I don't know if everybody will find it funny, but the guy who said Harvey Updike killed a few trees, Jimmy Raines killed millions.
Jeez.
That was his response, and I was like, it's definitely rivalry week, but we're discussing killed trees. But I was at a table one time with 5 other people, and they started Bama fans, and Harvey Updike came up, and I didn't think anything about it. We're at Jim and Nick's, and I'm just eating, minding my business, and I've never known what to think about it. It happened on a radio show. It happened live. He told on himself. The trees did die. I mean, the whole thing to me is just insanity.
Bizarre. Yeah.
And I looked up, and these 5 jokers were friends of mine were arguing heatedly about Harvey Updike to the point he got loud, like people were looking. I was like, there's strong opinions on the statue, and I think I know where Tuscaloosa stands.
I think so.
Probably Googling how to get a statue made.
Yeah, somewhere outside Galette's, maybe Innisfree. You can do something like that.
Tuscaloosa's front yard.
Well, yeah.
I think he could have a Mount Tuscaloosa in the front yard. His 4 guys.
Jam Bama checking in here in the mailbag. We've missed him the last week or so, but one of the things we were going to talk about today is top Thanksgiving sides, and I promised on the recruiting roundtable yesterday that I would drop my top 7 Thanksgiving sides. I don't know if you prepared yours today, Tim, but I'll go ahead and count mine down now.
I'm not that guy. I'm a top 3 type recruit.
Well, I mean, we were talking 7. We were talking Jordan Seaton yesterday.
That's exactly right. So I'm more of a top 3 guy.
So I'm doing the Seaton 7. Yeah.
Yeah. Get a graphic made.
I tried to get an edit. I couldn't find anybody that would do that for me. Top 7 for me is 7 is ambrosia. That's a sentimental thing. The late grandmother from Walker County, Alabama, would make ambrosia. It's kind of a fruit thing more than a typical side, but man, it was just there every year. So it gets the 7 spot. 6, I got hash brown casserole. Nice. 5, mashed potatoes and gravy. So that 3. I got 2 potatoes there for you. 4, I've got dressing, never stuffing. You know the difference, right? We all know the difference between dressing and stuffing. Stuffing's kind of nasty when you think about it. Dressing, and that can be either chicken dressing. My Aunt Wanda in Saragossa, Alabama, Tim, makes the best chicken dressing. We have good friends in Tuscaloosa who swear by oyster dressing. I'm kind of... Yeah, me either. I'm more of cornbread chicken dressing guy, never stuffing. And then 3... to me, it's kind of just a solid option that it probably gets overlooked. I like fresh sliced tomatoes with my Thanksgiving dinner. And then I go 2, I go snap pole beans, not green beans, not string beans, snapped pole beans. And then 1, I've got fresh shucked corn right off the cob, Tim. There's the Seaton 7 for my Thanksgiving sides. What do you got for your 3?
Me, I'm just simple. I like deviled eggs. I like dressing and gravy. I mean, giblet gravy and dressing. Really nothing else. I do that with turkey and ham, and I just ride it out. I'll tell you the one thing I've never got was cranberry. Anything that leaves a can and looks like it's still the shape of the can
Yeah.
is not something I don't know, and it never gets eaten. My mom will put that out every year, and I've never seen anybody eat it. I don't know if that's just an old school tradition or what it is, but I've never seen it change. I've never seen anybody really eat it.
Yeah, I don't like the cranberry out of the can. Now, I like cranberry juice, and I like dark chocolate covered cranberries, but
Yeah,
just
I
that
guess
type
that'd
of
be fair.
cranberry, that sauce. And where do we stand again on sweet potato? Because sweet potato is a big one, and we're going to see some of that in the
It's a
mailbag coming up
dessert,
here.
right?
I
I
don't
can't,
I don't do sweet potato on.
I
I
tell
don't
you
do it
what you
for
can do,
anything.
and I think I told you this before, but my wife like cuts them up into fries
Okay.
and she bakes them like fries. She puts a little paprika on them. I think it is. I have to double check that, but they're really good. Those are good when they're crisp. When you bake a baked potato, you're expecting a certain texture. When you get a
Yeah.
sweet potato, it's a lot softer feeling to me.
Hmm.
But then again, with the baked potato, they don't give you a bunch of sweet stuff to put on it and make it a
I know you
dessert.
can put
So,
cinnamon butter and all that. I've never gotten
well, you
there
know what I mean? Like my
with sweet
coffee's a
potato.
milkshake, so my sweet potato is a dessert, whether it was meant to be or
Marshmallows and everything on it.
yeah,
Yeah.
whether it was meant to be or not. It's coming in hot as a dessert.
Jambama says cornbread dressing is the best and only real side while watching planes, trains, and automobiles.
It's a
There you
great
go.
movie.
You know, you
TNRD.
know it's holiday season, by the way, Tim. TNT yesterday at like 1 Central on a Monday had Christmas Vacation on.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that hit me hard. Like, wow,
Yeah,
it is the holiday season.
yeah. We're here.
Jambama also, he asked, what is your favorite memory from the Iron Bowl? Do you wish it was still at a field in Birmingham every year? What about those two things? Favorite memory from the Iron Bowl, Tim?
I'm such a recent guy. It's definitely, and I think when I'm 100, it'll be the same. That Bryce Young drive,
Yeah.
it never ceases to amaze me. I've seen it all week. I mean, it was 3rd and 10 from like the 2. Um, and just the way that drive happened is always, I mean, I could go old school. There's so many things. I kind of like the Birmingham vibe that it gave, but I like it better. To me, it's a home and home
I
because
miss
of,
the smell of the stadium dogs at
yeah, it
Legion
was
Field. You could smell them, I
yeah, but
thought.
Legion Field just doesn't seem to be in great shape or
No.
situation. Or we went several years ago for the Papa John's Bowl. Connecticut was playing South Carolina, and I had a lady from Connecticut behind me griping, saying, "If you're going to host a major bowl, it needs to have better parking." And I was like, "Major
Major
bowl?
bowl.
Like it is December
Not like
17th.
a
It's
major
11
award.
degrees. We're at the
Yeah.
Papa John's Bowl, and there's no Papa John's pizza." It
Yeah.
arrived like in the second quarter, late in the first quarter. So
Yeah. For me, as far as favorite Iron Bowl memories, um, you got to go back to Paul Bear Bryant, too, winning 315
yeah, that
in a
was
win
sweet.
over Auburn. The kick, Van Tiffen from 52 yards out in 1985 is very high with
Yeah,
me. Seeing Gene Stallings get that win in Birmingham to cap the 96 regular season, his final season on the job. More recently, Roy Upchurch in the corner of the end zone in 2009 at Jordan Hare. You said it about the Bryce Young drive. I mean,
yeah.
that's an all timer too. So you got plenty to choose from if you want to go back 40, 45 years, even for some old heads like us. Here's a question for Jam Bama. You can hit it on if you want or not. Where would you rank Ryan Williams if he were in the 2024
Hmm.
class instead of 2025?
Let me see here. It's kind of hard because he's one of the top 10 players in his class. 2025 is a better class, much better in my opinion than 2024. I think he's an elite. I mean, he's definitely a 5-star. He's probably a year away from being physically where he wants to be. Cam Coleman's the number 1 wide receiver with Jeremiah Smith in 2024. So he's not playing the whole homer card. He's a top 3 wide receiver in the country. And I don't say that lightly. Cam Coleman and Jeremiah Smith are monsters. They're legitimate top 5 prospects. So Ryan being in the top 3, I'd still have him in the top 10 overall. on Alabama's commitment list. Probably, possibly, number one, number two, probably between Julian Sayin and Jalen Mbakwe. I mean, I love Ryan Williams, but it's hard to like sling them in a class. And you're going from to me, a weaker class. He's going from a super strong class to a weaker class, but I think he would hold his own. I think he would be a top 10 type prospect.
There you go. Jam Bama also wants to know, what would a successful December look like for Alabama men's basketball? You're going to have 6 games in the month of December. 3 of those, actually, yeah, 3 of those you're talking about Purdue and Toronto, Creighton on the road in Omaha, Arizona on the road in Phoenix, but still a road game essentially. And then you've got some matchups with Liberty, usually a pretty solid mid-major in the Flames. Eastern Kentucky and Tuscaloosa, and an old friend will return to Coleman Coliseum on Monday, December the 4th, with Arkansas State in town. How about that? One of the assistants that left the program after last season, one of the 3 that took head coaching jobs elsewhere, Tim.
Well, didn't we just saw Petway play Charlie Henry, right? Didn't I
think
see that?
so.
Yeah,
Pet's off to a good start, isn't he?
Yeah, Pet, look, there's nobody, and I know, I've always got that guy, that glue guy. Like for football, it's always going to probably be Javier Arenas for me. And for basketball, it's probably always going to be Petway. And Petway was that guy in high school, overcame everything he's done. Walk on, the game winning, the layup against Florida when the SEC. So many moments, that energy he's got, that positive vibe he's got, great recruiter. And good things will come to him. But yeah, you're seeing a lot of that crossover early on. You got Brian coming back for this game. As far as December goes, I mean, I think you're looking at a probably 3-3 worst case scenario. I think 4-2, you're happy. Anything above 4-2, you're absolutely pleased, because that means you've likely beat 2 or more of that group of Purdue, who's a good basketball team, had a test yesterday, Arizona, and who am I missing? Gonzaga. Who am I missing on the third?
Creighton on the road in Omaha, which will be tough.
Yeah, I haven't seen Creighton
yet. I agree. I think if you go 2-1 from those 3, that means you're probably going 5-1 for the month heading into SEC play. That would certainly be a success. 4-2 isn't the worst potential outcome. You just don't want to get swept in that 3-game stretch.
If you do get swept, it's also not the end of the world. I mean,
they're playing really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, goes back to, like, I'm a firm believer. I'm glad Alabama played Texas this year. I want those games. Hey, Jamie said I got memorabilia. Jamie, I got it there.
I knew when I popped that one up, it would just dominate you. It would just stop you in your tracks.
Make sure Jamie knows I got it up there. Look at that.
For that sad wall. He called it a sad wall.
It's the wall between the books.
Yeah, it's that Ron Burgundy setup.
Yes, I still don't know what to put back there. I had a picture of my daughter
rich mahogany and fine leather-bound books.
I had a picture of my daughter painted, and it was right, just sticking out the edge of my head in the middle. So I'll find something. But yeah, I mean, even the worst case, you lose those games. I mean, those games are meant to try you and see what you're made of. You're playing 3 top 10 teams. Basically, you're not a top 10 team. I expect some overreaction. Regardless of what happens in those 3 games,
Wobro here in the Round Table Mailbag. Curious to hear your honest expectations of Freeze at Auburn in the next few years. Obviously, last weekend was a complete embarrassment. Saban had a rough one his first year. I was there to witness, but few thought that was a tell of things to come for him, and that's proven to be correct. Tim, do you think the perception of Hugh Freeze moving forward will be similar to what it was for Nick Saban? Because Saban did have that 0 for November in his first season that included that home loss to Louisiana Monroe. I think something, though, that's maybe being overlooked in all this is that New Mexico State's not a bad team. New Mexico State isn't even ULM from 2007. That's a 9-win team. I know it's not the best league in the world or anything like that, but where do you see this going with Freeze?
I think the embarrassment for New Mexico State, again, is that it was a thrashing. You know what I mean? If it had been last second play in the back of the end zone, a block kick return, or any of that stuff, it would have been. I think that. But as far as his tenure at Auburn, I don't think it matters a whole lot. I mean, you lose games you probably shouldn't. I think every coach can say that. Obviously very unexpected. I think were they 30-point favorites? They almost
25-point favorite. And that's the
flipped
second straight year that Hughes lost in New Mexico State too.
Well, sometimes coaches just have your number. They kind of know they know you're that familiar, and all that. I don't think Hugh Freeze is going to have a Saban-like career. I mean, it's kind of hard to do what Nick Saban is. I'm not sure anybody's. Kirby's obviously in the discussion. He's doing a great job, and Ryan Day's got some things going. Jim Harbaugh, if he survives the shenanigans, he has a chance to have that kind of career. A big if, in my opinion. But I think Hugh Freeze will be good for Auburn. I think he knows the key. The key to the SEC's recruiting and coaching. Auburn's never going to have an easy road, no easier than Alabama. I mean, they're going to play the SEC schedule just like Alabama does. But I do think Hugh Freeze is a positive from a coaching aspect. I think a little of the luster's gone after the Ole Miss teams that beat Alabama. They still had a few losses at the end of the year. That was kind of the highlight, the pinnacle of each season. And we forget how friggin' good some of those skill players were they got. A.J. Brown, you saw him last night. You've seen DK Metcalf. You've seen a lot of those guys. They had a ton of talent, which he'll try to replicate. But I don't think the New Mexico State loss is some kind of statement that Hugh Freeze doesn't know how to coach. I think he still knows how to coach.
I think what we're saying is relative to Auburn, he'll be fine. And should be there for quite a few years.
They upgraded from what they had before him. I don't think it's, I think you hire him, even if you can look in the future and see the New Mexico State loss, I think you still hire him. That was just a bad situation they were in before that.
Yeah. Tide still checking in here in the mailbag. He says sides for Thanksgiving are dressing. Cornbread is the only style for his dressing. He says mac and cheese, which probably should have made my 7. Sweet potato casserole. That's where we part ways. Tide still. Marshmallow and candied pecans. Now I do like the pecans. The wife does she does the spice pecans. She's already done a batch or 2 of those, and I've been enjoying those. And he says, Thanksgiving is for carb intake. No doubt about it, Tide Steele. I mean, Tim, it is the Carb Olympics, right?
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not halfway asleep, middle of your first run, it's so bad. I have to pace myself. I go so heavy on the dressing. That night, we'll usually have something Mexican, like tamales or tacos.
Break it up.
But Friday, I wake up, fired up, sweatpants on, stretching. I'm going back at it. Friday's a bigger eating day for Thanksgiving.
Now, do you have cargo sweatpants too? Are there pockets even on your sweatpants, Tim?
So you make fun of that, but yes, there are. I have them. I mean, you laugh, but you don't know how back these are. That's the problem. You people thinking you're cracking jokes, but yes, Nike absolutely makes the running pants.
No, you're committed. I love it. I'm not making fun at all.
It's the extra pockets. I had a doctor's visit last week, and one of the girls I know well, she had on her scrubs, and they had cargo pockets on the thighs.
Wow.
And I was asking her, how do I get those? Those look super comfortable in the summer.
Oh, goodness. I knew it, but I had to ask it anyway.
They do have them. I don't think they don't have them on. I mean, you got yoga pants that have a pocket for your phone now. So most people are kind of like, that's cargo pants. They don't really want to admit it, but you got extra pockets. You're wearing cargos.
You are.
In the discussion.
They'll call it stuff like 7-pocket jeans or things like that.
Yeah, they're just trying. They know
they call it everything but cargo.
There's a heavy cargo bias in this world.
Tide still also asked, does being superstitious or believing in Jordan Hare voodoo indicate weak mental fortitude?
Yes. No.
Oh.
I'm just kidding. It does not. I've thought it a million times, and I've seen the weirdest stuff. I have seen the weirdest stuff. What was the Georgia Auburn?
Yeah, that was before the kick six. That was the game before the kick six. The ball goes off, and
when a play happens that's never happened again in football, you got to count some voodoo.
Yeah,
you got to count some voodoo. But that even worse. The kick six was terrible, but kind of in hindsight, you kind of learn from it. But that play was
Alabama should have put that game away though, and it looked like it did.
Oh yeah,
One of the things
absolutely.
I remember from the kick six is I think it was T.J. Yeldon scored, but there was a hold on O.J. Howard that brought it
Hmm.
back,
Yeah.
and that played into it. So
Well,
yeah, it
what
was
about
just
the play? The one that still stands out to me was the Auburn Georgia game where he batted the ball up
yeah
in
the
the
tip
air, and,
ball and the deep ball when it was
and
pretty
wasn't
much
that
over.
Trey Marshall for her, the Georgia guy
Yeah,
that
it tries to
tipped
go
it,
for the interception or
and
something,
then
you
but
know.
he transferred to Auburn later,
Yeah, well,
which
that's
that'd have been the one school I never went to.
yeah. Well, Pat Dye played
Well, I
at
guess he's a
Georgia, coached at
hero.
Auburn.
Well, I guess he's a hero in that situation, right?
Well,
The Georgia guy tipped
a
it to Auburn. They
plant's what
scored.
the fans call it. You know.
That was just a weird play. I mean, that was
Yeah.
a he's a pretty good football player, just an odd play. But
I'm
no,
not
I
a
don't.
superstitious person myself. So like, when people start talking about don't talk about a no hitter during it. Give me a break,
I'm
man.
highly suspicious. Highly, no, no, no. I'm highly superstitious. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't. There's nothing worse than one of my dip rod friends who text me in a game I'm
You watching
watching.
this no hitter?
No, even worse are the Braves or Pelicans. Like, oh, Zion can't miss, and I'm like, well, he can now. And it didn't never. I've never seen anybody say something like that, and it happened. I've never seen anybody say he can't miss and him continue to, can't miss. But or they look great. They look great. I'm like, there's 3 minutes into the first quarter.
Tide
That
still
was,
also wants to know what are the top keys to Alabama's most offensive success in the Iron Bowl. I would say balance, continuation of that, and be in attack mode early. The last couple of games, especially, and really Alabama on the road has done what it needs to do to get out to quick starts. And I think that maybe with the psyche of Auburn coming off that loss, this is one area where I think the New Mexico State situation could show up. After that kind of loss, if Alabama gets out Tim 7-10 nothing quickly, that crowd is going to be more likely to withdraw, I guess you could say,
yeah, they're
than
going to be
it would
there.
be otherwise.
Yeah, I think you see that. I think that's most games at the end of the year when you're not having a great season. I mean, you come there. You saw Kentucky do it. Good crowd, fired up, 14-0. Hey, let's go see if the basketball team's practicing. You gotta do that. So they'll come, they'll have fun. Again, it's still an event. I mean, a lot of people forget. I know they get on the students, but the students are there. It's an event for them. So if you get up big, establish. I still think they need to establish the run. Jalen obviously is a big part of that as far as keeping them honest. But I do think there's opportunities in the air to make plays. And I think again, like you said, balance. But I think Jalen being that wild card is very similar to what Jalen Daniels does. In fact, I don't think Jalen Milroe is really getting enough love. And, it's probably because of the slow start, but he is top 10 in the Heisman. But I think this guy, I mean, the second half he's put on has probably been as good as anybody in the country.
Yeah, well, no doubt. And Alabama's performance on third down and in the red zone, keep that up and you'll win comfortably because, especially over these last 3 or 4 games, it has been in both areas an elite level. And New Mexico State last week really didn't have a problem converting for touchdowns in the red zone against Auburn or third downs. I think New Mexico State was 6 of 12. So those are areas to keep an eye
Well,
on this week,
if you see
too.
if Auburn's forced to drop eight, get guys back there in coverage or whatever, they're going to have issues with the running backs out of the backfield, and the tight ends could have a field day. I mean,
And
you've
I
seen
think
Robbie Oots, you've seen all these guys get opportunities. That's the thing about this Alabama team I like. If you're dropping them, you're leaving a big part of that field in the middle wide open, and they've got playmakers.
they do. And we've seen more and more the willingness to spread the football around with these skill guys that Alabama has. Batman here in the mailbag. Hey guys, I am feeling more confident that this team seems to have the mindset to handle the witch doctor's graveyard that is Jordan Hare. Boy, I mean, the Jordan Hare boogeyman is out. What do you think, Tim? I would say intangibly, this team is again talking about some road starts of late after USF. I think in the first quarter of the last 3 road games for Alabama, it has outscored Texas A&M, Mississippi State, and Kentucky 38-10. in the first quarter of those 3 games. I've
Yeah,
seen enough
Tommy
to
Reed,
think he can handle it.
kudos to Tommy Reese for coming up with those play calls. Those are scripted coming out of the game. I think what helps this Alabama team is they are really close group. So I don't think, the thing I noticed, Ty Simpson, when he dropped the ball before he scored on the sideline, I noticed you had guys over there hugging him, consoling him, patting on the back. And it wasn't like, the walk on punter. I mean, Tyler Booker was over there. There's guys going to pick each other up. I think that you face adversity easier when you have everybody to get your back. And when you're on the road in the SEC, you're probably going to run into some adversity, or you're going to have more confidence because you're not going in there alone. So I think the mindset of this team has been far superior than a lot of the fan base at times. I think they've had confidence when nobody else had confidence in them. And I
Yeah,
think that
this
win or lose the rest of the year, win or lose to Georgia, win or lose in the bowl game, win or lose in the playoffs, this team's mindset was exactly what I hope every Alabama team's mindset is in the future.
this was a team after USF that a lot of folks didn't think would win 10 games, that would snap that 10-game win streak for Saban teams at 15. And here they are at 16 and with 10 wins. And you still got a regular season game to go. You still got the SEC championship game. You still got a potential playoff spot. If not, certainly a New Year's Six bowl game would seem to be on the horizon for sure. Philly to Bama in the mailbag. Do you think Caleb Downs is handling all punt returns from now on? I didn't think he had those kind of skills with the ball in his hands. This kid is such a complete football player. We saw some of that all around ability though from Downs, right? Even on the
Oh
high
yeah,
school level.
yeah, he's that guy. You look at those special kind of players, and Brian Branch was that way. He had ball skills. You had Landon Collins was one of those guys that could tote the rock, and Caleb was that way, kind of that. I mean, he had the ball in his hands. He's trouble. Very confident. He caught a couple. He filled the first couple of punts. He dove at one basically, right? Very comfortable catching the ball. Very just some guys just like I don't think you can teach good hands. And some guys just are going to drop passes and not feel comfortable. Some people catch everything. And I think Caleb's one of those guys with not only the ability to catch the ball, but then the physical tools to do what he did. I mean, obviously, the punt return is one of the highlights of special teams this year. But yeah, he's got the skills. Kool-Aid just does not look comfortable. I don't know if that's some form of the yips or in your head or just your size. Almost like Steve Sachs couldn't make that throw for the Dodgers back in the day, or Yankees, whoever it was, from second base. And that's kind of like Kool-Aid. He's got good ball skills. I saw him catching alley-oops one-handed and dunking in high school. I saw him both ways playing on the football field as well. But, and he did a good job last year. But this year just hasn't seemed as comfortable, right?
And judgment is where it starts for return guys on punts. You got to be able to pick up rotation, spin, and it's never been more difficult because of the different ways that these guys punt the football. So, and it's like the analogy to center fielders in
Yeah.
baseball, being able to pick up the ball off the
Track a
bat
ball. Yeah,
and
track
take
a
a
ball.
path. You got to pick a path, man,
And
from
some
very
guys are
early
just
on in the punt. And some guys some guys have it, some guys don't.
you go back to baseball. I mean, Ken Griffey Jr. caught a lot of those balls over the fence because he tracked it so well. He's
Off
not
the
the only
bat.
guy that there's not the only guy that could leap and get his arm over the fence. I mean, center fielders are fairly athletic. He just had the ability to track it, and I think Caleb does. I think Kool-Aid had it. I don't
But
know if he should.
confidence can deteriorate that.
Well, look, I'm not, speculate a little bit. You get into that money year, heading to the draft. I think you've got a tendency to protect yourself a little bit more, not in any kind of, slanderous way. I think your mindset's just to watch and be more careful. And I think, you get,
Not mess up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think that's it. You don't want to put that bad film on tape. You don't want to get injured. That stuff starts getting into your head. And my whole statement the whole year is if he's not comfortable, he shouldn't be back there. I mean, that's just not, that's not good for anybody. But I do think Caleb looked good. He looked the part, and he has that confidence that he needs to have to field it.
Yeah, the good thing for Kool-Aid is his draft status isn't tied to punt returning.
No, that's not.
If
Yeah.
it was a big part of it, that would be one thing. He's viewed as CB1, I'm sure, by some teams, and that's what he will be drafted off of. Major Wood 482 in the mailbag here. Jordan Seaton, Tim Watts, the 5-star offensive tackle at IMG. Major Wood is demanding some good news on that front.
Well, I don't know. You know, the thing, I said this on yesterday's recruiting podcast. I think the recruitment of Jordan Seaton's really just getting going. You know, with his season ending, signing days approaching, teams. I mean, I think that's going to be a heavy NIL flavor with the number one. And he's a really good prospect. And number one offensive tackle in a weak offensive tackle class. I think it's going to come down. A lot's going to favor. And again, it's not all about NIL for everybody. Some people it's just a straight business decision. You go to the guy. You saw the Aggies get some guys like that a few years ago. It was just straight who was the best offer. And there's been others, but a lot of them are trying to meet in the middle. I think Jordan's probably going to end a little bit more on the business side. I think he's going to take that approach. He's a little bit further advanced. Alabama got Proctor, who's starting at left tackle. Seaton sees he's a left tackle or thinks he is. So, you know, there's some things working against Alabama, but there's some things working for him. He's got a great relationship with Coach Wolford for Alabama, who does a tremendous job of recruiting and building relationships. He's named Alabama his number one team several times. He likes Alabama. He was at Tennessee last week. So kind of taking his visits, kind of getting to those discussions that are serious. I still think Alabama's in it for sure. I don't want to leave the impression they're not, but I just think there's a lot more that he's got to juggle and help figure out and go. But Alabama's in it. Tennessee's in it. Oregon's going to make a push. There's other schools. And again, we talked about this on the recruiting show. I feel like he named the top 5 at one point. And now he named the top 7. So Jordan's actually going backwards. So we could have a top 10 and him going to the late period. So still some recruiting left to be done there.
Major Wood also asking, what do you guys think of a Charles Woodson comp for Caleb Downs? I think Woodson at Michigan, sure, with what he was able to do with the ball in his hands, even some offense for Charles Woodson. I guess Woodson in college more of a corner, Caleb more of a safety sub package. I think most people feel like if Caleb needed to play some corner, he could do that too. What about it? What about Charles Woodson for Caleb Downs eventually, Tim?
Yeah, I kind of lean towards it's not the same body build necessarily. Yeah. Ed Reed was a little taller, but Ed Reed's always been my number one safety as far as defense to offense. Because when he picked off a pass, he was a wide receiver. There was, he was a punt returner. He was a kickoff returner when he had an interception. Great ball skills, physical instincts. I think Caleb has all those things. And again, because he's a safety, I compare him a little bit more to Ed Reed. And hey, that's not something I'm super comfortable doing because I hold Ed Reed at the highest regard as far as cover safeties and mentally being where he needed to be and all the intangibles physically. But I mean, Caleb's that guy that I said the whole last year, I thought he was the number one player in the country from a talent standpoint. I'm not saying you rank him number one because obviously what goes into that, the rankings are based on the NFL draft and quarterbacks, left tackles, defensive end go higher. Safety's never going to go number one. But as far as a pure football player, head to toe, A to Z, physical, mental, everything, he reminded me of Minka, who's the top guy I've always compared Alabama guys to have it physically and mentally. As good as we thought he was going to be, he's better probably, right?
Really, really good.
I mean, there's not many guys that jump in and take over punts and return it 82 yards or whatever. I mean, that's just not.
No.
That's not normal.
And as special as that is, you just don't see true freshman safeties jump right in and start and make calls and checks and even play some sub package stuff at the star, maybe the dime. That's not.
We thought he was going to be great.
Not common.
He's probably exceeded our expectations.
Yeah, mine. He's exceeded mine.
I said him as high.
I knew he was a gifted player, and I knew that he was intelligent. But to bring all that together as quickly as he has, you just don't see that.
I kept hearing the whole time he lives in the film room. He lives in the film room. He was always asking Alabama coaches questions. He's you add physical, mental, all that's great. And then he's a student of the game. I mean, literally, we go back, everybody makes fun, but he's as blue collar as they get. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the gingerbread man here in the Round Table Mailbag, he says, Iron Bowl, Smiron Bowl. How will Alabama defend Brock Bowers? Gingerbread man said, he's on to Georgia at this point. And maybe the guy we just talked about, Caleb Downs, has to be a big part of that, Tim.
Yeah. I think Malachi could work in there some too. Try to get your
Sure.
hands on him. He's obviously, he was never going to win the Heisman, but he's probably as talented again as anybody in the country at his position. He has his integrated impact probably close to as Jaden Daniels, right? I mean, that guy's just a different animal when it comes to the field. Come back from his injury, catches everything, tremendous football player. I don't think you're going to shut him down. I've never seen anybody shut him down. I just think you're going to have to get a body on him, try to get somebody strong to try to reroute him. But Georgia knows how good he is. They're going to figure out several different ways to get him, whether it be screens, get out in the open field, get mismatches with him. I mean, I think Bowers is going to get his in most games. So, but I still think you can beat Georgia with him getting his.
I think you said it. Bowers might get his, but you can't let Lad McConkey get his, and then Dom Lovett and those other guys. Really, for me too, is it starts with making Georgia have to hold the football long enough when it throws it to give your edge guys and your pass rush a chance to affect Carson Beck, who has looked better and better every week. But Alabama has some edge guys that Georgia hasn't had to deal with yet. And so if you can put Georgia in situations 3rd and 8, something like that on a consistent basis where Beck has to hold the football to push it down the field, then Alabama's pass rush could perhaps help you out. But you're right. I mean, every week we watch Georgia, and somehow Mike Bobo is able to get Brock Bowers wide ass open, it seems like, Tim.
Yeah, it reminds me of like back in the day when everybody was saying, why is nobody covering Amari Cooper? They're trying to cover these guys. Some guys just are always open. You know what I mean? I think Bowers is one of those guys that, he's just always open. And he's got great ball skills in addition. I mean, he catches almost everything thrown his way. So I think the bigger game is stop the run, apply pressure to the quarterback, control the ball. I mean, Georgia's still got a heck of a defense. They don't have the same big name. They got a great defense. It's a really good defense. It doesn't have as big names as we were used to seeing, because we were seeing Jalen Carter. What was the guy that went number 1 to Jacksonville? I'm drawing a blank.
Trayvon Walker.
They had N'Kobe
Nolan Smith.
They had so many big names we're used to. We don't hear as many big names now, but collectively they're really talented units. It's kind of similar to Bama. We got
They are.
2 teams that have a lot of talent.
It's going to be kind of like that Spider-Man meme where they're pointing at each other,
Yeah, that'll come down to whose offense. In my opinion, offense executes the best.
Couple of plays, probably.
I'm excited to see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's Bama's one chance to get in the college football playoffs this year. That was
and you talk about the playoffs. If Alabama wins that game and the SEC still gets shut out of the playoff, what kind of playoff do you really have? Because in my opinion, if you're going to have a champion from a league other than the SEC, you need to validate that champ with a win over an SEC representative.
Oh, yeah, it would be ridiculous. It's almost hard. It's hard to even fathom that a one-loss Georgia with the only loss to Bama isn't getting in the playoffs, because there's been no scenario in the past where both of those teams weren't getting in.
I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And if you're going to leave the SEC out, if Alabama beats Georgia, and you're going to claim that you really determined a true national champion,
it's jacked up. I mean, the fact that they're
give me a break.
The fact that they're bullying on Oregon ahead of Texas and Alabama is already telling
they're trying to force it down your throat.
I don't care. They watch every game on their iPad. I don't give a crap. You know what I mean? Just because you're watching it.
But I've got the 4-box on YouTube TV, Tim. I watch.
I don't understand. They watch the cut-ups. Congratulate. I don't think. I mean, obviously,
how much of the cut-ups do they really watch? Come on.
I mean, it doesn't take long. I had the NFL package one year. Had the this is a little insanity. It had quick cuts, which was every single play. I watched every single football play.
I like SEC 60 on SEC Network. I can watch all the games in an hour.
Yeah. Well, I watched an entire NFL football season, every single play from the kickoff of the first game to the Super Bowl. Now, I was doing it. A lot of it was quick cuts.
That's a hell of a binge.
That's 20 minutes or so. I got that little. I wanted to finish it out, then get to the playoffs.
Do you watch Red Zone Network on Sundays?
I think the kids watch it more than I do. I like to pick a game and just kind of study.
I like the touchdown compilation they do at the end of the day. They show every touchdown.
That would be
from the day. That's pretty good.
I like to watch them. I'm usually watching 2 or 3 at once.
Yeah. The wife messed around, let me put side by side 65s in the condo we're in now in the living room. So I got a 65 over here and a 65 right there. I still can't believe I pulled it off, but
Mess around, find out.
not
Heather found
not
out.
complaining. Yeah, we got two great Heathers. We are both
Yeah.
fortunate in
Yes.
that regard. Hey Tim, that's it for the mailbag. Anything else before we get out of here?
No, everybody have a good Thanksgiving. Really looking forward to the shows next week as we head into Georgia and all the discussion going with it. We should have discussed Michigan, Ohio State. I'm pretty
Yeah,
excited
the
about that
rivalry
game.
games, the other rivalry games.
Is that even a rivalry game? This is like blood in, blood out. I mean, is
this beyond Iron Bowl hate this time around, especially?
this
Feels really personal.
It feels kind of like after Harvey Updike, who we talked about earlier, when the Auburn fans were so mad. I think that Ohio State feels cheated. Did you see Harbaugh steal the
Michigan feels set up.
Did you see Harbaugh steal the Ted Lasso quote?
Yeah, he did. It's
Like,
not even
dude,
a great line.
I don't think. No, it's a terrible.
But it's he's such a
Why are you
cheese ball.
discussing your
Harbaugh's
mother?
such a cheese ball. I mean, there's no surprise he went with it.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, who the heck's discussing how they want to see their mom? I don't want to see my mom in any bikini.
Well, it's just another case where no one, he ran that by some people in the office before he went in there.
Somebody gave
and everybody went, going, coach.
I was wondering, he don't seem like a Ted Lasso watcher. So I wondered if maybe somebody gave that
somebody fed it to him. Yeah.
Well, social media, and he didn't deliver it worth the crap. And
what about a low-key rivalry game that I think's important? Or you think's important? I think South Carolina Clemson is important because Beamer's got a chance to make it 2 straight over Dabo. And I'll tell you another one, Louisville, Kentucky, because Jeff Brom in year 1's got that thing going. Stoops has had it going at Kentucky pretty good. Could be a pretty good sea change with those two.
I'm kind of excited to see the Turkey Bowl because that seems like there's been a lot of upsets in that too.
No.
We will see you guys next week, and y'all have a good Thanksgiving. And as always, Travis, I loved it.
It was a lot of fun. Absolutely.
I don't know about the live feedback.
Stay away. It was good. I enjoyed the part about your lack of memorabilia there.
I have a ton of it. I just I'm not sharing it. I'm not sharing it live
produced yet. The video documentation of that. So we've got you covered, Tim. No worries. Hey, Tim, have a great holiday. Look forward to next week.
All right. Same to you guys.
For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanking you for joining us right here on T Watts and TR on the YouTube and podcast homes for BamaOnline.com. Don't forget that special YouTube subscription offer for new subscribers of BamaOnline.com. If you go and sign up right now and you enter the code UA1 at checkout, you're going to get 2 months of BOL for just $1. Go ahead and do that right now. For Tim Watts, Travis Reier, thanks again. And until next time, so long, everybody.